Good morning, everyone. Welcome everybody to the House Ways and Means Education Subcommittee meeting. Today we have several bills on the agenda today. Just for the record, just want to remind everyone that enters in, if you are not a member of this committee, we ask that you turn your cameras off. But if our member, and we ask that you do not ask questions. If our members have questions, you can raise your hand and we'd be more than willing to call on you to be able to answer that question. With that said, let's begin. We have House Bill 495 on the agenda today. We'll start with that one. That's Delegate Ebersol's bill, Student Organized Peaceful Demonstrations. It's a piece of legislation we passed last year, and it's back. It's in the same exact posture as last year's bill. Alistair, just for the public, you want to tell everyone what this bill does?
Yes, absolutely. So this bill requires each County Board of Education to create a policy for the peaceful demonstration of students. It specifies certain parameters around that policy, that there has to be timely warning about the demonstration, and that it must include guidelines for time, place, and manner of expression, and define what constitutes reasonable requirements limiting those things. This last year, we had some amendments working with the Attorney General's office to make sure that this met constitutional scrutiny and heard approval from that.
Cool. Any questions for Alistair or myself on the bill? Delegate Ebersol, you have anything to add to the bill?
Not unless there are questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Delegate Hornberger with a question.
Yeah, just on the bill. I worked extensively on this bill last year with Delegate Ebersol, and I still have a lot of concerns because policies against something or for something or dealing with something that's a constitutional right could sometimes get skewed and be used as a disincentive to do a constitutional right. I also think this removes the spontaneity of protest with these notices and approvals and things like that. So even though I'm not encouraging folks to protest, it is, we have Supreme Court law that clearly states students have the right to peacefully protest whenever and however they want to. So anything that we pass that even remotely gets in the way of that, I have concerns about. So I'll probably still be voting against the bill this year, but thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Hornberger. Delegate Ebersol, do you have anything?
Just that I appreciate, first of all, Delegate Hornberger did work hard on this when we looked at some of the constitutional implications. We felt like we resolved them. There is a debate about what constitutional rights exist once you pass through a school door. You don't lose them all, but some things do change. This policy is written, if you read it carefully, you'll see that it's written not only to protect the instructional setting, which is what Delegate Hornberger is talking about having perhaps some restrictions on when and how students can protest. I'm a big one for protecting the instructional setting, but it also protects students from being entrapped by having a policy that they can follow. It allows them then to be able to protest, but not to have an administration act more aggressively than they can or need to in stopping them from protesting. There's business there about other punishments that may not be levied only if they make a mistake. Like, let's say the students leave campus when they're not supposed to. Well, they can be punished for leaving campus, but not because they were protesting. And it can't be a deeper punishment because of what they were protesting or that they were protesting. So it's designed as a sort of dual protection.
Cool. I was looking through the testimony, and it looks like we only have one person who signed up as an opposition, and that was Anne Arundel County. But it looks like we covered a lot of the other things that were mentioned in here too from last year. So with that, do I hear any other questions? Do I hear a motion on this bill?
Move favorable.
Okay.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. Can you raise your hand one more time? So I can see.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All opposed? Delegate Hornberger, Hartman, and Rose opposed. Great. Okay, we'll move on to our next bill. Mr. Willems, if you can mute yourself, I think that'd be great, just in case. Thank you, sir. Next, we'll move on to House Bill 515. This is Delegate Fellmark's bill on student athletes uniform modifications for modesty, Inclusive Athletic Attire Act. We do have a proposed amendment that will come up, but Alistair, walk us through this bill for us. This is our first time hearing about this bill in the subcommittee.
Absolutely. So this bill would require that county boards and the Maryland Public Secondary School Association, along with public institutions of higher education and community colleges, allow student athletes to modify their athletic requirement for religious purposes, so long as the modification does not interfere with the student's movement or pose any safety risk to the student or others. Additionally, there are specified ways that the modifications can be made. They can be done through black or white coloring or coloring that fits the colors of the team. Would you like me to talk about the amendment or wait for?
Yeah, let's wait for the amendment for a
Okay.
second. Let's see if there's any questions first. Any questions on the bill? Okay, seeing none, is there an amendment on the bill? Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in looking at this bill yesterday, first of all, I'm fully supportive of the intention of the bill. And in talking with the bill sponsor yesterday, she mentioned that this was modeled off of an Illinois law. And I was just looking back at that and realized that there was actually a phrase that had been left out of the bill that's before us. And actually the bill sponsor agreed that it was an accidental omission, that she didn't catch during the drafting process. So the amendment before us, which Alistair shared this morning, just adds one more clause that says that the student's own preferences for modesty would also be allowed. Again, that's how Illinois, which has already enacted this, has that in addition to the religious and cultural reasons for why an athlete's uniform might be modified. And I should say the bill sponsor is supportive of the amendment.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions on the amendment? Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me understand, originally the bill was for religious or cultural reasons. This now makes it if a student for any reason wants to amend their uniform?
For modesty reasons, I would say that the reason that my understanding is the reason that Illinois included this clause in addition is it might be hard to define, particularly for cultural reasons, what a cultural reason is for modesty purposes. It might be something that's more tradition in your family. It might be because of your own body type, and perhaps a uniform might be showing something that you don't want to be showing, depending on how the shape of your body. It's just trying to give some flexibility there. And again, this is how Illinois enacted the posture that Illinois is in.
And if I remember correctly in the bill says something about the school doesn't have to approve it, correct?
They have to accept these modifications, but it's not at the school's cost. It's at the cost of the student who makes the modifications.
Right. But as far as, if a student came in and said, I'm doing this for religious reasons or cultural reasons, they couldn't deny it, correct?
That's right.
So now if we're adding this for the student's own preference, it may no longer, anything could fly under the thing of modesty. So any student can alter anything for any reason with this amendment, the way I interpret it. Could that be the case?
Well, so under the bill and with the amendment, the only modifications that are allowed are to add like a shirt or leggings or a head covering. So I think for someone's own modesty, it might be that they're adding a shirt because they feel like, the V-neck on the tank or whatever comes down a little too low and shows off something they don't want to be showing off, or that they're adding leggings underneath shorts that they personally feel are much too short for their own personal comfort.
Okay, so the bill limits a shirt. It allows head coverings and so forth, though, correct? From
The bill as introduced, yes, does.
right. I mean, I like the bill and I was supportive of the bill. My concern is this amendment's going to allow it to be abused. That it could be taken too far for, just there's no longer cultural or religious reasons. I understand modesty. But I think this line can just be abused. That's my own personal concern.
Thank you. Delegate Rose with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to kind of follow up and echo what Wayne was just speaking about, I feel like this amendment is just too broad the way that it reads currently. So that gives me concern as well, just to bring that up.
Delegate Rose, is it the amendment or is it the bill itself that you're concerned?
I was okay with the bill. I don't like the amendment, basically for the same reasons Wayne just brought up. I think it's just too broad for interpretation, and there could be sort of abuse of the process.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Rose.
Thank you.
Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you want to entertain a motion on the amendment?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I
Just check and see
yeah.
if you were there.
I wasn't sure if you had a question. I didn't want to move.
No,
the amendment to you.
but I'd be happy to move favorable on this amendment.
Okay, yeah. So it's been properly moved
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Any additional discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Delegate Rose and Hartman opposed. Okay, do I hear a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill as amended.
Second,
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, delegates Hartman and Rose opposed. Okay, that bill passes as amended. All right, we'll move on to our next bill. Seems like we're making some great progress today. Next bill is House Bill 769. This is Delegate Jones's bill on student data privacy protections. This is a bill that I believe we passed in the past. Is that right? And then we also have an amendment potentially to this bill too, right? So Alistair, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yeah, absolutely. So under Maryland law, as it stands now, information that's gathered from students as part of the learning process, as part of online tools that students use, may not be sold for profit. So what this bill does is it updates what counts as student private data and also updates the definition of operators, those who are covered by that prohibition. So it's just expanding that to keep up with changes in technology. Additionally, the bill has a provision that requires each county board to send a list of all approved digital tools to the State Department of Education and for the State Department of Ed to publish that list. However, the amendment removes that piece of it. And finally, when the first law was created to keep student data private, there was a council that was created, the Student Data Privacy Council. I believe it ran, the original term of that council ran out last year. And so the last section of this bill would just reinstate that council and give it a couple things to study, including the practices in other states, reviewing technology and making recommendations on any needed changes going forward. And that council would be in effect till September of 2028. And that was also in the version of the bill that passed last year.
Okay. Delegate Jones, do you have anything to add to Alistair's explanation?
As always, Alistair is perfect. Thank you so much, Chair. No, thank you.
Yep, cool. All right. The amendment was proposed. Alistair, you went through the amendment pretty fast. You
Yeah.
wanna tell us what the amendment does again.
Absolutely. So as this bill is before us, it requires that for all approved digital tools that are used by educators and that are authorized or not authorized by the county board, that each county board would collect a list of those tools and share it with MSDE, who would then publish it. And that part has been stripped out in the amendment. The Senate passed the bill in that version with that part stripped out. So I believe this is making it in the same posture as the Senate bill.
Following the Senate, I don't know if I like it anymore. So cause for concern over here, man. Okay, any questions on the amendment? Do I hear a motion on the amendment?
So moved.
Amendment.
Oh, I was about to say,
Second.
man, we're not moving this amendment. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? No opposition. On the bill as amended, Delegate Jones.
Move the bill, please.
Second.
And properly moved and seconded.
I don't know about proper. It wasn't quite proper.
I think it was polite. I apologize.
No, don't apologize for being polite. We need more of that here. It's been probably moved and seconded. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. The bill has been moved to the full committee. Okay, guys, we're gonna skip one bill and we're gonna go to House Bill 192 to our local bills, and then we're gonna come back to that bill. So let's go to House Bill 192. This is a local Baltimore County Board of Education bill. It's about the student board and their voting rights on the board. Alistair, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, so as this bill is presented to us, it allows the student board member to vote on the capital and operating budgets. There is an amendment that the delegation adopted for this bill. I believe we passed the bill in this form last year.
Correct, but not in the form with
but not in the form with the amendment.
But what's the amendment do, Alistair?
The amendment requires the student board member learn about budgeting so that they will be able to vote in a proper manner.
Got it. Alistair or Delegate Ebersol, are there any other counties in the state of Maryland that has the student board member have these voting rights?
Alistair, you probably have a more complete list than I do.
I don't know off the top of my head a full list, but there are other.
Anne Arundel and Montgomery, I think, both do at this time. At least those two I know of.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make the point that you wouldn't be the only ones doing it. Cool. All right, Delegate Hartman with a question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't know if I'm making a point for adding financial literacy to the curriculum or questioning the judgment of allowing students to have a vote on budgets of this magnitude. But I just think there's definitely a conflict here. Okay. So concerns, I don't know if we need to push another bill or pull this one back. But just saying, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Duly
There
noted.
actually was discussion.
Wait, hold on.
If I
Duly
may.
noted, Delegate Hartman. Duly noted.
Thank
Delegate,
you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Ebersol.
Even though his tongue is planted firmly in his cheek, a little bit on that. There was actually some discussion about making the other board members also, because they probably haven't taken a financial literacy course either, also be trained at the start of their term in the budget. That really wasn't the subject of this bill. It's more about the student member. But I think that we're going to see that bill in Baltimore County soon. So that's coming up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, not all members of the board have a budget background that can review budgets and have that type of background. So it might be good for everybody to have to go through that course. And so many of our there's a lot of elected positions and appointed positions where there's no requirement of the backgrounds of board members, but we're doing it, but we would do that for our student member, which is, in my opinion, unfair. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
I just was going to, clarify. So, Delegate Ebersol, what you're saying there is because the student member is going to be required to be trained, but it wouldn't preclude any of the other members from opting into taking that training if they wanted to, correct?
Mr. Chair, I can answer. Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
true.
Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think one of the reasons we focus on the students was because they come in on a yearly basis. Whereas even though some board members may not have some expertise, they'll develop it much the way that we do on things. But still can't hurt. I think they could certainly take the training. It's going to be offered by the budget department of the school system.
Awesome. Okay. Are there any other questions on the bill on the amendment? Do I hear a motion on the amendment?
So moved. Move favorable.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Delegate Rose, Hornberger, and Hartman. Okay, the bill has been, the amendment has been adopted. Any motions on the bill itself? Can I have a motion on the bill itself?
Yeah, I see a hand, but I move favorable on the bill as amended.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, just, is this a delegation bill?
Yes, it is.
And what was the vote tally on the,
Ooh, I don't have the tally. in front of me.
or is it?
It was not unanimous, if that's what you were
Okay.
looking for.
All right, that's all I need
You
to
might
know.
imagine that you could identify people by characteristics, how they voted.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. Okay, cool. Any other discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Delegates Hornberger, Hartman, and Rose opposed. All others are in favor. That bill has moved. House Bill 380, this is a Montgomery County delegation local bill. It's about the election of members. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does? Alistair, you there?
Yes, sorry about that, Mr. Chair. This bill would make it so that in Montgomery County, the members who reside in different election districts, the members who are elected in different districts for the County Board of Education must reside in those districts, and the member at large may reside anywhere in the county.
And this is just clarifying language.
Yes, I believe so. I think that's correct.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yep, sure. Go ahead, Delegate.
Yeah, so this bill actually is changing right now we do at-large elections for our school board, even though there is a residential requirement for people to live in the different 5 districts unless they're elected at large. This would actually change those 5 district-based seats to being elected just by the voters in those districts. And this bill it is a local bill. It did come out of our House delegation unanimously.
Okay. Any questions on the bill? I am going to special order this bill for now, and we'll come back to it in a second. Let's move on to House Bill 476, Baltimore County. It's another Baltimore County bill. Delegate Eversole. This is House Bill 476. Member appointments and terms and elections of officers. It has potentially 2 amendments to this bill. Delegate Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, so as it comes before us, it pertains to the governor's appointment of members to the County Board of Education. However, there's an issue if the governor is appointing members to the county board in a year in which the governor will no longer be in office, having the constitutional ability to do that. So the amendments address that particular circumstance, I believe.
Okay. Any questions on the bill? Alistair, did you talked about the amendments, right?
Yeah, I mentioned in brief. So there is an issue if the governor is appointing members to the county board when the governor is no longer, after new governors are running and the governor no longer has the authority to appoint people. So the amendments deal with that contingency, I believe. I think Delegate Eversole might be able to speak a little bit more
Only if it's interesting to the committee, I can go into some detail, but I see maybe the chair, maybe you'd like to recognize a question.
Well, let me recognize you first.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, Alistair did it. I don't think he's the chair.
Go
Apparently
ahead.
not.
Go ahead. You want to give us some background?
Sure. We have a hybrid system, and there are 7 elected members and 4 appointed members. There's a committee that meets to give the governor a list from which he draws people. The Constitution says that in what we call offhand a lame duck year, if the governor loses or doesn't run in the primary, they're not allowed to make appointments after the primary. And this commission won't be done. So the new members are supposed to be sworn in the first week in December. They couldn't be because they couldn't be appointed by the new governor. Or if they did that, then we'd have some legal troubles. So this just delays their appointment until the new governor is inaugurated. We're fixing it. The other amendment, there are 2 amendments. The other amendment says we're not going to get in this trouble anymore. We're going to have the appointed members get appointed in presidential election years. And the elected members will come in on gubernatorial election years. And so we didn't recognize a problem until too late. We need to fix it this year. Going forward, it won't be a problem.
Got it. Okay. Questions? Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, just to clarify here. So as long as they began their term before the governor's term was up, that would be constitutional, but you're stating that he would make an appointment and they would start their term after the president or after the governor's term was over.
My understanding is constitutionally he can't make appointments. And so these appointments wouldn't be made. There's the way the calendar is written for us to have the appointment board nominate people, it would occur after the primary. So he would be constitutionally.
But the governor can appoint up until his last day in office.
No, he may not. I'll send you the opinion, but the AG's office says that he may not make appointments if he has not won or has not run in his primary or her primary too. I should say there's no women. Hasn't been a woman yet. But I hope there will be soon. I can send you the opinion.
Yeah, I'm just very curious.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 2 questions. The group that's putting forward the list of names, how are they selected? What are they made up of?
I don't have it in front of me. It's extensive. It's 19 people. It's people from county government. It's people from PTAs. It's people from the teachers collective bargaining group. So it's a pretty extensive list of people that get together. They've done it already a couple times.
My last question, this hybrid, is that unique to Baltimore County? Why not all elected? I've never heard of the elected and appointed combination. Help me understand that.
Mr. Chair, may I answer?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's really not on the bill. That's a piece of legislation that was passed back before 2014, where the county delegation decided they wanted to have a hybrid board
turn off notifications
and pick them. So this bill just corrects the reality. We didn't run into this problem in 2018 because Governor Hogan was in office and Governor Hogan won his primary. And so we didn't really recognize the problem until last session, and it was too late to get anything passed. So we're trying to correct it the best we can right now.
So before, were you all appointed, then you added some elected?
Yes.
I like elected school boards. That's the only reason why I'm asking these questions.
The entire board was appointed up to 2010 would have been the last year that they would have all been appointed. In 2014, we had a race, and 7 members by councilmanic district were selected, each one elected in their councilmanic district. And then 4 members are appointed, and then a student member is elected also.
So why don't we just fix the problem by amending the bill for all elected?
Because we need to bring that before the Baltimore County delegation.
I know. I'm just
okay.
There are a few other. I'm sorry, Delegate.
Nope, I'm done.
Oh, there are a few other ones in the state that also have the same system.
okay.
There
Thank you.
are about 3 or 4 other counties.
All right. Seeing there's a lot of questions on this, what we're going to do is hold this one for now, and we'll come back to it a little later as well. Let's move on to House Bill 689. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does? It's a Carroll County local delegation bill.
Yes, so we have some menacing members from that county on this subcommittee. So this does two things. It says that an individual student member of the Carroll County Board of Education cannot serve more than one term, and it also raises the salary of the members who are serving. Currently, a member who is the chair makes $9,000 per year, and a member who is not the chair makes $8,000. It would raise both by $4,000. So the chair would make $13,000, and the other members would receive $12,000 in annual compensation. And it received universal letter of support from the county delegation.
The question I have, Alistair, for this one is, it increases the member, the regular member salary, right? But it does not increase the student representative's scholarship.
Yes, that's right.
Did they consider that at all? Delegate, because Delegate Hornberger answered it. Delegate Rose, I think you can answer it for me, right?
Thank you. Yes, we actually discussed that with the board and the county commissioners, and we're going to address that next year in raising that amount. We just wanted to go ahead and get this done as we have people running. So we wanted to get that done this year, but we intend to address that situation in a delegation bill next session.
Okay, Delegate Hornberger.
Did I hear correctly? You can only run for one term?
No,
The student member.
the student member.
Okay, just one. Thank you.
And Delegate Rose, are the terms limited in for the board members to run? How many times the board members can run?
No, I don't believe so. Alistair, do you have the law in front of you? I don't think they are.
I'm looking at it right now. I don't see.
I don't think they are limited.
No, I don't believe they are.
Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna hold this bill and all the local bills for now, and we will take them up next time we meet. Okay. Thank you for that discussion. Let's go back to House Bill 985. This is Delegate Walker's financial literacy bill. We do have an amendment for this bill. Alice, you want to tell the body what this bill does and then tell us what the amendment does?
Yes, very happily. So as introduced, the bill requires the State Board of Education to develop curriculum content for a half semester long course in financial literacy. Each county board then must implement that curriculum, which must then be made part of the graduation requirements for each high school. The amendment to the bill would change it from a half semester long course to a half credit course. It would make the curriculum content standards be based on the current state approved curriculum standards for the financial literacy program in high schools. And it would remove the requirement that this be a graduation requirement, but it would have to be available to all students in all high schools in the state.
All right. Any questions on the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm trying to get my hand up.
Yes, go ahead, Delegate Ebersol.
Thanks. So I'm curious about the language on making it available, because there are lots of courses that can be made available, but don't run. For example, at a high school, they might have a course in Mandarin Chinese, but only one student signs up for it. So the school can't justify running the course because it would be too expensive to have courses with one student. So financial literacy, if it's not subscribed, so I want to know if the language requires every school to have it be a course, or if they're just required to make it part of their course offerings, which is, I think there's a distinction there.
So this language is modeled on the language under the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which requires that certain post-college and career readiness pathways be made available to all students, which does not mean that they be offered in every high school, but that students in all high schools can participate in them. So if there's sufficient demand, it would probably be offered. If there's not, potentially, a student could go to another high school or something, which is how the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is interpreted. If perhaps the virtual education bill we passed last year were adopted, they could possibly take the course virtually. That is an option under that bill. But it does not necessarily mandate that it be offered in each high school if there's not sufficient demand.
Would it mandate that if a student wanted to take it that the county would have to find a way for them to do that by
Yeah, it
transporting
has,
them to another school or by
or some process.
or by
Yes.
virtual or something like that. Okay, I'm a little uncomfortable with that because that could be a bit of a burden on a school system if we're offering, this is a slippery slope, hate to use the term, but if we begin to say that they have to offer certain courses, especially ones that may not be subscribed, there could be other courses we could do this with, and so I'm a little bit concerned about it, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Delia Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate being recognized. Thank you for the work on this bill. I want to pass this bill, but it's really complicated. So I think that some of the suggestions we're hearing today really make it more palatable and more doable. I have two questions, if that's okay. One is, was there, if you could clarify, I believe Alistair, you said something about not having MSDE do the financial literacy curriculum for all the counties, but to work it within the financial literacy framework that they already have. If you could clarify that. And then my second question is, has there been any discussion of what is the other half credit course that you would combine this with? Are there enough options to make this doable?
Thank you, Delegate Guyton. So yes, so this currently, under regulations, each student has to be given financial literacy program that's weaved throughout the rest of the curriculum that they get. This bill is making that a standalone requirement, but it has to be based on what has already been developed by the State Board of Education for high school students to learn their curriculum. And you're also right to point out this half semester thing. I think it's not always the practice that each school offers half semester courses. So rather than a half semester course, it's been changed to a half credit course, which would cover a full semester length in time, so that they wouldn't have to develop other additional courses to match with this course.
Got it. Delia, you had a follow-up? No. Okay, cool.
You would think we'd learn by now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Only I think I was thinking of it the opposite way. So thank you for clarifying that, Alistair. So we are mandating in this an extra semester that kids have to take of a very specific subject. No.
I'm sorry. It doesn't have to be taken. It just has to be made available to kids. So it would most likely be an elective that they.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have two questions. First, if it's okay, I have a question for some of the advocates that are in the room. Looking back at the testimony we received for the hearing, MSCA and MABE had both opposed this bill as it came in, and I was wondering if the representatives from those groups could weigh in on if they have a position in terms of the
Sure,
amendment.
great question. MABE, MSCA, Mr. Willems.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. MABE consistently advocates for as much local discretion in implementing any expanded, mandates around scope of curriculum. We've been historically very supportive of the State Department's approach, and if this bill is amended to be more aligned with that MSDE approach, it would be much more acceptable as a statewide change in standard of and expectations for financial literacy instruction for local school systems. And so I have not seen the specific amendments to be clear, but certainly in hearing them described, they sound good.
Look at that, man. Look at God. No, I'm joking. Did MSCA, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, your expert MSCA's response to?
Yes, please, if they don't
Do
mind.
we have anybody on?
I see
Lauren.
Lauren Land.
Hey, Lauren.
Hi, I am here on behalf of MSCA. We would have to take a look at this amendment a little bit closer. We do typically oppose curriculum mandates, but an update to the standards would be likely much more workable for us. So I can't say for sure yet, but I can appreciate where it's going.
I should say it's not just an update to the standards. It's also still a course that's offered, but it is based on those standards.
Got it. Okay. Delegate Palagwishkar.
Yes, and then thank you, Mr. Chair. So my second question, Alistair, actually to go back to something that you said earlier about what's in the amendment, that the amendment says make the course available to students in every public high school in the county. And I think you referenced that this was aligning with something we'd done with the blueprint. So sorry, can you just explain that part again?
Yeah, absolutely. So the blueprint requires that the goal of the blueprint for high school students is that they meet college and career readiness by 10th grade. And it requires that once students have met that, they be provided with post-college and career readiness options, which include CTE courses, career and technical education courses, a slew of courses that are like AP or IB that can be transferred for college credit or actual enrollment in an institution of higher education. However, each high school doesn't have to offer all those things. They just have to make it, because that would be prohibitively difficult potentially. They just have to make it available to the students who attend that high school, either through transportation or potentially through some sort of online courses or something of that nature. So it's modeled on that same idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the bill. I see there's already over 80 sponsors. If we're going to move this piece of legislation, I'd like to, since we're putting another amendment on, see if we could add some more sponsors to that. I know I would like to.
You want to do that right now? You want to wait till we get to the committee at some point?
That's fine. However, as long as we can add to it, if we're adding the other amendments, I just wanted to comment. I mean, we have more than half of the House of Delegates on this bill. There's certainly interest for years to pass this piece of legislation. So however you want to do it, but I'd like to be on it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So given some of the discussion about the offerings, I'm not sure that right now we're ready to have this subject rise to the level of other things that were cited in the blueprint. And so I would like to say that perhaps the language should be that each county will include this curriculum in their course offerings, but not necessarily, given my earlier concerns, not necessarily guarantee each student that they could be registered for it.
So that does take us out of it does change the amendment a little bit, whereas it requires it to be made available to every student in every high school versus it being a selection of courses depending on what's available, how many students sign up for the course. Is that right, Alistair?
Yeah, that's right. It would change that part of the bill.
Yeah. Is that your intent, Delegate Ebersol?
Yeah, as I say, the blueprint was written pretty deliberately with things that we consider to be significant enough to rise to that level. I'm not sure this does. It might, but I think we need to be very deliberate about beginning to add things that school systems have to offer to every student and make available to everyone, as opposed to making it part of the course offerings. That would be what I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. Delegate Palagwishkar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually would agree with Delegate Ebersol. I'm still feeling a little uncomfortable about this bill and in terms of mandating curriculum, in terms of where the amendments currently stand, and especially without having MSCA and MAPE having seen the amendments and having an official position from them. I'm kind of hesitant at this point.
Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's questions and comments and things of that nature. I'm gonna go to Delegate Ivy, but I think what we will do is probably hold this bill for a day, and then just to give our advocates an opportunity to review the amendment that's offered, and hopefully we're able to talk a little bit more about Delegate Ebersol's suggestion as well, and assuage everyone's concerns too. Delegate Ivy with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really just wanted to express my content with the legislation in its current format. I know that there's a lot that goes into mandating curriculum, but it is one thing that we should all be literate in because it's so very important. As a recent graduate of our public schools, There are a handful of classes that, really made an impact that I still call upon. This would be one. So I'd like to make sure that not only is it available, but I think it should be required that we should go further. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Ivy. Delegate Ivy, did you just say you're a recent graduate from high school?
I'm going to keep saying it until
Point of order,
start
Mr. Chair.
calling
Can
me
he
out
say
about
how
it.
recently,
Hey,
please?
look,
I'd like to know.
I went through a public higher education institution as well. So there, in Prince George's County as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, cool. Thank you, Delegate Ivy. Any other questions on this bill? Seeing that, we'll hold the bill and we'll bring it back up, guys. Thank you for the comments and the great discussion we had on this bill. I think it's an important one. Obviously, we want to get something moving that's palatable, that we can educate our students on financial literacy. But I'm just going to take what John Willem said and said, this sounds good. With that said, let's move on to some discussion items. We did have 3 pieces of legislation that are all very similar, that we wanted to just have a brief conversation on and see where people fall within these bills. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about next steps on these pieces of legislation. We have House Bill 352. This is Delegate Shee's bill. House Bill 489, that's Delegate Acevedo's bill. And House Bill 922, which is Delegate Valderrama's bill. And they all have something to do with academic standards, dealing with different cultures within our culture, within our society. Let's take, I was going to ask Alistair if he can talk about the bills a little bit, Delegate Guyton, or did you have a quick question on something else?
No, certainly I can wait until Alistair
Cool.
does a rundown. Thank you.
Perfect. Mr. Johnston.
Thank you, sir. So yes, these bills all would have a similar approach to ensuring that underrepresented and historically marginalized groups be that their historic experiences and contributions to world history and society be considered as part of the curriculum that the state board adopts. This would not be to mandate a particular course or anything like that, but it would be to include those experiences throughout all the different courses. And I believe all these bills are either modeled on or very similar to what the Virginia legislature did a few years ago to incorporate the Virginia law specified the African American and Jewish American experiences, but these bills, one of them would do that for Asian American experiences, but others would do it for a number of marginalized groups. And all these bills have similar ideas about how to go about this. It creates an advisory board that would look into these issues and see where there could be issues related to the histories of these peoples that would be best incorporated into the curriculum. Those advisory boards would then make those recommendations to the state board, who would adopt them and make curricular changes to follow. And yeah, so hopefully that answers questions or at least gives a good jumping off point for discussion.
All right, let's do it. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you've already thought of this, but 2 of these are advisory boards. One of them is actually a curriculum requirement. It makes sense to me, having been on a whole bunch of these kind of boards, that if we go forward with this, which I would support, that we actually sort of collapse them into one advisory board looking at, and I'm not picking one of these over the others, but the name Commission on History, Culture, and Civics seems like it could actually encompass all of these different things. So I don't know if that's a conversation that's been had, but that certainly seems like a really effective way to move forward with these without mandating the curriculum, without requiring it, but to give like some really good guidance about what's out there and what we might want to do in the future.
Delegate Guyton, did you just say you wanted to be Commission on History, Culture, Civics, and Financial Literacy? No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. Any other comments or questions on these 3 pieces of legislation? Cool, we're all in agreement with Delegate Guyton. I love it. Okay, seeing none, thank you all. I think that concludes our work here today. We'll probably end up meeting twice next week instead of just one time to try to get a lot of these bills just moving out, because we have probably the most bills out of any of the subcommittees definitely within the committee, and certainly probably within the whole House of Delegates. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. And please, if you guys have any questions on your piece of legislation or anything that comes before us, feel free to contact me. With that said, thank you all.